I never thought I'd walk back into this school and feel like I was 17 again, burning with the same mix of jealousy and thrill. Yet here I was, standing under the fluorescent lights of Lincoln High, about to interview for the same damn music teacher position as the boy who once made me want to strangle him and kiss him in the same breath. Ethan Carter. My rival. My shadow. My everything I never admitted. The name came at me like a punch the moment the principal introduced the candidates. I turned and saw him, the same crooked smile, though now a little more tired, the same sharp eyes that could mock me into oblivion without saying a word. He was wearing a fitted navy blazer, his hair a little longer, brushing against his temples. It felt unfair that after all these years, after all the ways I tried to bury the memory of him, he could still make my chest ache with something I didn't want to name. "Daniel Wright," he said, his lips quirking into that infuriating smirk I remembered too well. "Didn't think I'd see your face here again. Guess fate's got a sense of humor." I forced a laugh, though my throat was tight. Yeah. Or maybe fate just wants to torture me. The tension was instant, suffocating. We both wanted this job. Not just because it was music, our first love, our obsession, but because Lincoln High was the place we had started, the place we had once tried to outplay each other in every competition, every performance, every applause. Back then, I hated him because he was good. Too good. He hit the high notes effortlessly, played the piano like the keys bent to his will. And every time I thought I had finally outshone him, he came back brighter. But there was another reason I hated him. Because every look, every smirk, every time he leaned just a little too close when we rehearsed together, my heart betrayed me. And I couldn't afford to let anyone know. Now, years later, nothing had changed. Or maybe everything had, and that was worse. The interview ended with polite smiles and formal handshakes. But the real battle started once we stepped out into the hallway. "So," Ethan said, walking alongside me, his tone casual but edged like a knife. "Still chasing the same dream, huh?" I glanced at him. "Music isn't a dream. It's a purpose. Some of us don't give up on it just because life gets messy." His smile faltered, just a fraction, and I caught his shadow in his eyes. It was gone in a blink, replaced by the smirk again. Messy. That's one way to put it. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the way he looked at me, the unspoken weight in his voice. He had changed, yes, but not enough to erase the boy who once pushed me harder than anyone else ever did. And under all the anger and rivalry, there was still something else, something I had locked away for too long. I didn't want to admit it, but part of me was almost glad he was here. The next week, we both started trial teaching. The principal wanted to see us interact with the students, to judge our methods, our passion, our ability to connect. I went in determined to prove myself. I brought in my guitar, I made the kids sing, laugh, and even try writing their own lyrics. By the end of the class, they were buzzing with energy. But then I heard it. From the next classroom, the sound of a piano, flowing smooth and rich. Ethan's voice rising, strong and clear, carrying the melody like it belonged to him. And the studenzo, they were hooked, drawn in like moths to a flame. Jealousy burned in me, hot and ugly. But beneath it was something worse. The ache of admiration. Damn him. Damn that voice. Damn the way he made music feel like falling in love. At the staff lounge later, he caught me staring at him. "Still keeping score?" he asked, sipping his coffee. "Always." I shot back, but softer than I meant. His eyes lingered on me, and for a second, just a second, the smirk dropped. There was warmth there, a question, maybe even regret, and I hated that it made my chest tighten. The rivalry flared over the following weeks, but so did something else. Late nights in the music room, we'd both stay after hours to practice. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me when he thought I wasn't looking. Sometimes our arguments dissolved into laughter, the way they never had in high school. One night it happened. I was at the piano, fumbling through a melody I was composing for the kids' spring concert. My fingers stumbled, frustration mounting, until suddenly his hand covered mine. Warm, steady, guiding. "Like this," he whispered, his breath brushing my ear. The world stilled. My heart pounded. His hand lingered longer than it should have, his body close, too close. I turned to look at him, and for once, there was no smirk. Just him. Just Ethan. And God help me, I wanted him. But we were still rivals. Still competing. Still pretending. And the truth, whatever it was, wasn't going to stay buried forever. The problem with late-night piano sessions was that silence always followed. And in silence, all the things you didn't dare say crept up on you like shadows. I sat there, staring at Ethan's hand still covering mine on the keys. The air between us felt charged, almost unbearable. I should have pulled away, should have made a joke, brushed it off, anything. But instead, I let it linger. His fingers pressed down gently, guiding the chord into something fuller, richer. The sound floated into the empty classroom, echoing softly. Then he let go, his hand retreating like it had burned him. "You always rush the second measure," he said finally, his voice rougher than usual. "You used to do that in high school, too." I almost laughed, but it came out shaky. Guess old habits die hard. His eyes flicked up to mine, searching, maybe hoping I'd say something more. Instead, I looked away, pretending to adjust the sheet music. I couldn't let myself fall into whatever this was. Not when tomorrow we'd be pitted against each other again in front of the principal. But damn it, I couldn't stop thinking about the warmth of his hand, or how close his shoulder had brushed mine. The next morning, the hallway buzzed with energy. Students darted past, their chatter bouncing off the lockers. I carried my guitar case down the hall, forcing myself to focus on today's lesson plan. But then I saw him, leaning against the doorframe of the music room, sipping from a travel mug like he owned the place. "You're late," he said casually. I frowned. "I'm 5 minutes early." He smirked. "Exactly. Late, compared to me." There it was again, that stupid game we'd been playing since we were teenagers. Always one-upping, always poking, always testing. But now there was something softer beneath it, like the rivalry had blurred into something dangerously close to intimacy. That week, the principal scheduled us both to co-teach a class. "It'll be good for the students," she said. "Two talented musicians, different styles, showing them how collaboration works." Collaboration, right? We stood side by side at the front of the classroom, instruments ready, students buzzing with anticipation. I started with a rhythm on the guitar, upbeat, playful. Ethan joined on the piano, his notes weaving effortlessly into mine. For a moment, it was magic the way we fit together, filling the room with harmony neither of us could have created alone. The kids clapped along, laughing, singing. And in that whirlwind of sound, I caught Ethan looking at me. Not with rivalry, not with mockery, but with something I didn't dare name. My chest tightened. I had to look away before I drowned in it. Later, when the students had gone, we stayed behind to clean up the scattered sheet music. The silence was thick, heavy with everything unsaid. "You were good today," he said quietly, not looking at me. I froze. Compliments weren't part of our language. Not before. Not now. "So were you," I replied, almost reluctantly. He finally glanced at me, his lips twitching into the faintest smile. "Careful, right? People might think we actually like each other." I wanted to laugh, wanted to shove him, wanted to kiss him. Instead, I shoved the papers into my bag and muttered, "Don't get used to it." But I couldn't stop thinking about that smile. The pressure built as the weeks passed. The principal hadn't made her decision yet, and every day felt like another test. Every time Ethan shined, I felt the old jealousy claw its way up my chest. And every time I shined, I caught him watching me with something that wasn't envy at all, it was pride. One evening, after a particularly brutal day of teaching back-to-back classes, I found him sitting at the piano alone. His fingers moved slowly, hesitantly, over the keys. The melody was soft, almost broken. "You okay?" I asked before I could stop myself. He startled, then shook his head. "Just thinking." I leaned against the doorway. "That didn't sound like thinking. That sounded like bleeding." He gave a humorless laugh. "Maybe it's both." I walked closer, drawn in despite myself. "What happened to you, Ethan? You used to be—" I stopped, unsure of the word. Untouchable. Relentless. Untamed. He looked up, his eyes tired. Life happened, Daniel. And it doesn't care how good your high notes are. The confession hit me harder than I expected. Suddenly, I wanted to know everything. The cracks in his armor, the story behind the shadows in his gaze. But before I could ask, he shook his head and stood, brushing past me. Forget it. It doesn't matter. But it did. And I couldn't forget. The turning point came the night of the spring concert. Both of us had worked with different groups of students, each preparing their own performance. The auditorium buzzed with parents and teachers, the stage lights bright and hot. Backstage, I tuned my guitar, nerves knotting my stomach. Ethan stood a few feet away, adjusting his students' sheet music, giving them last-minute encouragement. His voice was steady, but I could see the tension in his jaw. When the curtain rose, the music began. My group went first, their voices strong, the melody carrying. The applause after was loud, reassuring. But when Ethan's group took the stage, something happened. The piano swelled, the voices soared, and suddenly the whole auditorium was breathless. It wasn't just music, it was confession. It was hope. It was heartbreak stitched into every note. And when the last chord faded, the silence that followed was electric, before the audience erupted into cheers. Clapped too. 'Cause damn it, he was brilliant. Always had been. Always would be. After the concert, while the crowd dispersed and the students celebrated, I found him alone by the stage, packing up the sheet music. You killed it, I said honestly. He looked at me surprised, then smiled a real smile, not the smirk. So did you. For a long moment we just stood there, the echoes of the music still clinging to the air around us. And then, before I could lose my nerve, I said, I don't want this rivalry anymore. His smile faltered. What do you mean? I mean, my voice caught, but I forced it out. I'm tired of pretending the only thing between us is competition. I don't hate you, Ethan. I never did. Silence. His eyes searched mine, wide, uncertain. Then he whispered, Then what is it you feel? I stepped closer, close enough to see the freckles on his skin, close enough to feel his breath. You already know. And then I kissed him. The world tilted, spun, and steadied all at once. His lips were soft, urgent, tasting of coffee and unshed words. For a second he froze. Then his hands gripped my shirt and he kissed me back like he'd been waiting years for this. When we finally pulled apart, his forehead rested against mine, both of us breathless. Damn you, right? He whispered. Yeah, I said, smiling. Damn me. But nothing was simple, because tomorrow only one of us would get the job. And love wasn't going to erase that. Not yet. The kiss should have been the ending. A clean break in the rivalry, the kind of cinematic climax where the credits roll and everything resolves itself neatly. But life wasn't a movie, and the morning after, I woke up with reality pressing down on me heavier than ever. One of us was still going to lose. When I walked into the school the next day, the hallways buzzed with leftover energy from the concert. Students clapped me on the back. Some shouted Ethan's name, others mine. The whole place seemed torn down the middle, and it felt like everyone was waiting for the principal's verdict. I spotted Ethan at the far end of the hall, leaning against his classroom doorframe with his arms crossed. He didn't smirk this time. He didn't tease. He just watched me, eyes unreadable. My chest clenched with something dangerously close to longing. Morning, I said cautiously as I approached. Morning, he replied, his voice low. We stood there in the awkward hush, surrounded by echoes of our kiss. Neither of us mentioned it, though it hung between us like a live wire. Finally, Ethan cleared his throat. They're making the decision today. I know. You ready for that? I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell him that nothing could prepare me for the idea of losing him, not the job, not the rivalry, but him. Instead, I forced out, Yeah, you. His jaw tightened. Always. But the way he said it didn't sound like confidence. It sounded like fear. The announcement didn't come until after lunch. The principal gathered both of us in her office, her desk stacked with folders and student evaluations. She folded her hands and gave us a kind, measured smile. "You've both done outstanding work," she began. "Truly. The students loved you, the staff was impressed. Honestly, I wish I could hire both of you full-time." My stomach nodded. The way she said it meant she couldn't. "In the end," she continued, "it comes down to what the school needs most right now, and that's stability. We've had 3 different music teachers in 4 years. We need someone who can commit long-term, someone with proven consistency." Her gaze shifted to Ethan, and in that moment I knew. "Mr. Carter," she said gently, "you're a remarkable musician, but your resume shows gaps years where you weren't teaching. While I don't doubt your dedication, I need to consider the bigger picture." Ethan's face didn't move, but I saw the flicker in his eyes. She turned to me. "Mr. Wright, your record shows continuous teaching experience, strong recommendations, and clear stability. Therefore, we'd like to offer you the position." The words should have felt like victory. I'd wanted this for so long, but as they landed, all I felt was a hollow ache in my chest. I glanced at Ethan. He was still staring straight ahead, his expression unreadable. But I could see the way his hands curled into fists at his sides, the tightness in his jaw. "Thank you," I heard myself say, though the words scraped against my throat. The principal nodded. "Congratulations. We'll finalize the paperwork tomorrow." And just like that, it was done. The hallway outside her office was quiet, but the silence between us was deafening. Ethan walked ahead, his steps sharp, clipped. I followed, my mind spinning. "Ethan, save it," he snapped, not turning around. I froze. The sting in his voice cut deeper than I expected. "I didn't ask for this," I said quickly. "I didn't want it to happen like—" "Of course you did," he shot back, whirling around. His eyes burned, raw and furious. "This is what you've always wanted, isn't it? To beat me, to win. Well, congratulations, right? You won." The words hit harder than any insult he'd ever thrown at me in high school. Because this time they weren't taunts. They were pain. "That's not fair," I whispered. "Fair?" He laughed bitterly. "Nothing about us has ever been fair. Not back then, not now." He turned and walked away before I could answer, leaving me standing in the empty hallway, my victory feeling more like defeat. The following days blurred together. I signed the contract, attended the staff meetings, settled into the role that was supposed to be mine. But everything felt wrong. The students were happy, yes, but I couldn't ignore their constant questions. "Where's Mr. Carter? Will he be back? Can we have both of you?" Each time, I forced a smile and changed the subject. But inside, guilt gnawed at me. I tried finding Ethan after school, but he vanished quickly, always avoiding me. When I finally caught him one evening in the parking lot, he barely looked at me. "Ethan, wait," I called. He stopped, his back stiff. "What do you want, Daniel?" I don't want this to be the end. Not for us." His shoulders tensed, then sagged. He turned, and the exhaustion in his face nearly broke me. "You got what you wanted," he said softly. "Let that be enough." And then he got in his car and drove away. Couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, his anger, his hurt, the way his smile used to light up when he played. And I realized something terrifying. I didn't care about winning anymore. Not if it meant losing him. The next day, I went to the principal. "Give him the job," I said. She blinked. "Excuse me, Ethan. Give it to him. He deserves it." "Mr. Right, you earned this position." "No," I interrupted, my voice firm. "We both did. But you said the school needs stability. That's me, right? Fine. Then let me share it with him. Make it a co-teaching position. We'll split classes, work together. The kids love us both, and we work better together than apart. You saw it at the concert." The principal hesitated, clearly skeptical. But I pressed on. "You said you wished you could hire both of us. Well, now you can." She studied me for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. "I'll consider it. But only if Mr. Carter agrees." Relief surged through me, but it was short-lived. Because now I had to convince Ethan. and he wasn't exactly in the mood to listen. I found him in the old practice room, the same place where our fingers had brushed on the piano weeks before. He was hunched over the keys, playing something low and aching, his face shadowed in the dim light. "Beautiful," I said softly. He stiffened. "Go away, right?" "No," I stepped closer. "Not until you hear me out." He slammed the piano lid shut, standing abruptly. "I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to fight. I don't want to pretend. I don't." "Good," I cut in. "Because neither do I." That stopped him. He blinked at me, confused. "I talked to the principal," I said, my voice steady. "I told her to hire us both. Co-teaching. 50-50. His eyes widened. "What?" "You heard me. I don't care about winning anymore. I don't care about being better than you. All I care about is this." I gestured between us, the space that had always been too charged, too fragile. "And I'm done throwing it away for pride." For a long moment he just stared at me. Then he laughed, incredulous. "You're serious? Dead serious?" His expression softened, the anger draining from his features, replaced by something raw, vulnerable. "Why would you do that for me?" I took a shaky breath. "Because I'm in love with you, Ethan. And I have been since high school. I just didn't know how to admit it until now." The words hung in the air, terrifying, liberating. Ethan's eyes shone, and he stepped closer, so close I could feel his breath. "Say it again." "I love you," I whispered. His lips crashed against mine before I could say more. And this time, the kiss wasn't desperation or rivalry or anger. It was home. When we finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine, both of us breathless. "You're an idiot," he murmured. "Yeah," I said with a smile. "But I'm your idiot." And for the first time in years, I felt like we both won. The news spread faster than wildfire through the halls of Lincoln High. Mr. Wright and Mr. Carter were going to co-teach the music program. The students nearly rioted with excitement. "Best idea ever," one sophomore shouted. "Double the fun," another chimed in. "Now we get both of them forever," a kid declared, throwing his hands up like he was at a rock concert. Ethan shot me a sideways glance as we walked past the cheering crowd. "You know, this is probably the first time they've ever cheered for a school staffing decision." I grinned. "What can I say? We're a package deal now." His lips twitched like he was fighting a smile, but he didn't argue. Working together wasn't easy at first. Old habits lingered, pushing too fast, him wanting to perfect every note. Our teaching styles clashed, and there were days when we nearly fell back into the rhythm of rivalry. But every time the tension threatened to snap, we caught ourselves. Because now, beneath the disagreements, there was something else. Something stronger. One afternoon, we were teaching a group of freshmen a new choral piece. The kids struggled with harmony, voices clashing like a broken puzzle. Ethan sighed, rubbed his temples, and muttered, "They're never going to get this." "Sure they will," I said, grabbing my guitar. "They just need to feel it." He gave me a skeptical look, but I started strumming anyway, letting the chords guide the kids. Slowly, their voices shifted, aligning with the rhythm. Ethan watched, his frown easing. Then he moved to the piano, adding a soft undercurrent of melody. By the end, the kids were singing in harmony, their faces lit with pride. "See," I said, smirking at him. Ethan rolled his eyes, but there was warmth in them. "Show off." Later, when the students left, he lingered by the piano. "You were right." I raised a brow. "Can you say that louder? I don't think the whole school heard you." He shook his head, laughing, and then pulled me in by the collar, kissing me before I could make another joke. We kept our relationship quiet at first. Not because we were ashamed, but because it felt fragile, like a new melody we weren't ready to share with the world. Late nights became our haven, staying after class, working on lesson plans, writing music together. Sometimes we'd argue over a chord progression. Sometimes we'd collapse into laughter. And sometimes we'd end up tangled on the old music room couch, the scent of sheet music and chalk dust clinging to us. But slowly, inevitably, the walls came down. Students noticed the way we looked at each other, the way our bickering carried a softness now. One day, a junior raised her hand mid-rehearsal and asked bluntly, "So, are you guys, dating?" The room went silent. Ethan froze. I smirked, slung my guitar strap over my shoulder, and said, "Depends. Do you think we make a good couple?" The room erupted into cheers, and Ethan groaned, burying his face in his hands. But when he peeked at me, there was laughter in his eyes. Outside of school, things were harder. Ethan's past weighed heavy years of drifting, jobs lost, dreams deferred. One night, as we sat on the hood of my car under a blanket of stars, he finally told me the whole story. "I tried," he whispered. "After high school, I thought I'd make it. Music school, auditions, gigs. But the world doesn't care how much you love something. I burned out, Daniel. I thought maybe I didn't deserve it anymore." I turned, grabbed his hand. "You've always deserved it. You just didn't have someone to remind you." His eyes glistened in the starlight. "And now I do?" I leaned in, kissed him softly. "Now you do." Months passed. Our program grew stronger, our students flourished. The spring concert became the talk of the town, with parents packing the auditorium, alumni returning to watch. That night, as we stood backstage, Ethan squeezed my hand. "Nervous?" I teased. He shook his head. "No, not with you here." When the curtain rose, we led our students into a performance that was more than music. It was proof. Proof of second chances, of rivalry turned into harmony, of love blooming where once there had been only bitterness. The applause thundered, echoing through my chest. And when Ethan leaned in and kissed me in front of the entire auditorium, the cheers only grew louder. Later that night, after the last chair was stacked and the last program folded, we sat alone in the empty music room. "This place feels different now," Ethan said softly, running his fingers over the piano keys. I nodded. "It's ours now. Not just a battlefield." He smiled, the kind of smile that reached his eyes. "You know, I used to hate you." I laughed. "Yeah, I noticed. I hated you," he continued, "because you made me want things I didn't think I could have, and I was too scared to admit it." I reached over, cupped his face in my hand. "You don't have to be scared anymore." He leaned into my touch, closing his eyes. "I'm not with you." The rivalry was over, but something far better had taken its place. We weren't enemies, we weren't just colleagues. We were partners in music, in teaching, in love. The road ahead wouldn't be perfect, but for the first time we weren't walking it alone. As the night settled around us, Ethan played a soft melody on the piano, and I joined in with my guitar. Two sounds, once clashing, now perfectly in tune. And for the first time in years, I felt whole. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.